Great stuff. Okay, well, thanks for coming. It looks like it's standing room only now in the back. So thanks, everybody, for joining us this morning. So my name's Ernesto Ongaro. I'm a solutions architect with DBT Labs. I have a very small part in this presentation. I really only get to tell you about what is DBT a little bit, and then a little bit about Tim and his talk. Just to see if you're awake. Anybody heard of DBT today? Keep your hands up. Oh, lovely. And anybody using DBT today? Show of hands. Okay, cool. Good few practitioners in the audience and some curious folks as well. So those that don't know what DBT is, a reminder, we are a way to develop transformations inside of your warehouse. So we, through simple SQL, allow you to build up, develop, test, and deploy data products in your warehouse. So on the left-hand side, there's raw data. We start when your raw data is kind of loaded into at least a storage kind of bucket or in your warehouse. And then we give you a place to make changes, test and document them, and finally deploy them as data sets that can be used for BI tools or ML models. Our kind of magical power that we bring to the world is uniting people on SQL and then giving those people the tools to work like software engineers instead of data analysts. So the kind of problems that we solve and some of the stuff that you'll hear from Tim's talk here shortly, without DBT on the left-hand side, effectively you have data analysts that are kind of frustrated by a lack of access to the transformation logic that occurs. We basically have a lot of trust issues because on the left-hand side, an analyst that wants to understand the meaning of something that a data engineer does, it's basically like we have to throw work over a fence and then hope that it gets done well and trust that it comes back quickly. So what DBT does is it puts like a data analyst or an analytics engineer in the center of that workflow and allows them a lot more access and a lot more autonomy. So we sort of created or started the term analytics engineer. I'm sure there's a few of you with that term. And for me, an analytics engineer is a frustrated data analyst that wanted more access to their pipelines. So the types of outcomes that we promote are collaboration. So I've worked in places where data transformations are done in a combination of Python, Scala, SQL, and Bash scripts. And once we united people on SQL, then it lets more people participate in the game. Once we have more people participating in the transformation game, you have more speed or velocity to ship the data products that you want to ship. And finally, due to the way that we enforce kind of software engineering best practices onto data analysts, we give you better ways to have quality and governance. So Tim's going to come up now and give you the story about how he's deployed DBT not only at his own company, but a lot of the portfolio companies. So it's a super interesting mind in data that has gotten to think about the strategy of data analytics for over 45 companies that he works with and has already adopted DBT. So warm welcome to Tim, and enjoy the presentation, folks.
Thanks very much, Ernesto. It's great to be here talking with you all. I'm Tim Harrison, a senior executive in the HG Data team. HG is a leading global software and services investor. We have over 55 billion in funds under management across over 45 portfolio companies. However, the other way I like to think of HG is that if you look at our combined portfolio, this represents the second largest tech company in Europe. And as you'd expect, that brings with it a huge data potential and capability that personally I get really excited by. I work within HG's data team with over 10 data specialists as part of our broader team of over 50 operators. And a core part of what the data team does is helping HG companies harness the potential of data and AI. We deliver north of 20 data transformation projects per year, and I like to think of those projects as working with our companies along the end-to-end data journey. So I think of this data journey as a constantly evolving path. We have milestones that are the foundations and enablers for this data capability along the way to ensure that we can achieve the value creation goals that we set out for in our data projects. And for this talk today, I want to share with you some of my experience across two of these foundations and enablers, the data strategy and vision and the data platform build, as well as two types of value creation opportunities on commercial optimization data projects and on data products themselves. So let's start that journey together. And firstly, I'd like to talk about one of the fundamental foundations, creating your data strategy and vision. So the first point I want to flag is that for any large data transformation, you do need to have that data strategy and vision in place. And this needs to be a data strategy and vision for the whole business and not just a document or plan that sits isolated in the data team. Having this data strategy in place is how you set up the project for success. It's how you ensure that the business is bought in to what we all know can be a complex, messy, difficult data project. And it also ensures that you as the data team have something that you can execute against and hold yourself accountable to in delivery. Now, let's say we're past that first hurdle, we have a data strategy. That's great. I want to share with you from my experience of having seen many companies bring data strategies and visions to the board for sign-off, to the CEO, to the board for budgets. What do I see as some of the most common problem and mistake in data strategies? And that is making that data strategy too long-term in its ambition. And now I get it. Data projects are hard. They take a long time to execute. They're messy. There are a lot of different components. But what you need to do is be able to demonstrate that you're going to deliver quick wins along the way in that data strategy and that data project. And my recommendation there is that as well as prioritizing the use cases by impact to the business, you should also be thinking about the time it takes to execute those use cases and make sure you're including quick wins on that journey. So there's no hard and fast rule, but from my experience, the best data strategies I see are ones that aim to deliver 3 to 4 use cases in the first 3 to 9 months. So now we have our data strategy and vision. We can move on in the journey to our next foundation and enabler, a bit more exciting from the technical nerdy side of things, and that's building out the data platform. And some of the benefits we've seen with over 10 HG portfolio companies now utilizing DBT as part of their modern data stack. This is a slide that probably looks very familiar to many of you. There are many different versions of this slide floating around on the internet, all the different components and vendors in the modern data stack, which has gone through what people talk about the unbundling in recent years, where there's a proliferation of tools doing very specific things. Now, one advantage of working in the HD data team is we get to see a diverse range of these tools and solutions being leveraged across our portfolio companies. And I had a go at highlighting the ones that I've personally seen being used over the last 3 years. And you can see it covers quite a few of them. And that's a really great experience for me because I get to see what's working well in different solutions and in different places. Now, if you're going about doing a platform uplift or moving your data platform to the cloud, you are going to need to think about all these different components, these pillars in the modern data stack. However, again, when you take that plan that you want to execute on how to build to the business, to your CTO for sign-off, sometimes when data teams present this and consider all these components at once, it comes across a bit like this, a mess of different tools. And that really is what I see as the most common problem with that data platform build phase of a data project, which is trying to build it all at once. When actually, realistically, what you need is to start with the core data platform that's robust and scalable and expand depending on the use cases you want to deliver. Now, what those core items are will depend on your business and on those use cases. So that first 3 to 4 use cases you want to deliver in that first 3 to 9 months. However, pretty much in all cases, you're going to need to be thinking about what's the data lake and warehouse, how are we going to ingest our data sources into the platform, how are we going to visualize our insights and serve them back to the business. And the area where I personally see data teams spending most of their time day to day, certainly in that first 9 months, but honestly in that first few years, is data transformation, coding in that business logic. And that's where we've seen a great acceleration in pace from using tools like DBT. Now, that's not to say you might not eventually need to consider all those other components. We've got portfolio companies using them and doing great things with many of those different components. But to start with, think about the core platform you need for those first use cases to deliver on. So as I mentioned, we typically see that most data engineering time in a typical data project is spent working on data transformation. And we now have over 10 HG portfolio companies successfully leveraging DBT for this. So I wrote in the top left of the slide, DBT helps us drive impact faster. So what does that really mean? It comes back to the points that Ernesto mentioned, which I should be able to remember. So that's things like collaboration, velocity, and quality. I got them all. But for me, the main differentiator, the game changer there of what DBT is doing for us is bringing well-known software engineering best practices to the modern data stack, to data transformation. And to make that very tangible, on projects that I see, it's things like version control that's enabling the team to collaborate and enabling us to scale and parallelize the work we do and deliver projects faster. It's the automated data testing, which is dramatically simplifying the huge time sink of data debugging, enabling us to find problems faster. And it's giving us that foundational data governance, that data catalog, that data lineage, that gives us enough of the foundational data governance for those first 4 use cases in those first 9 months so that we can show that we're delivering. To bring that to life a bit, I wanted to share a story that's been a very common occurrence in my career. Maybe it resonates with some of the other data practitioners. So let's say you wake up on a Thursday morning and I see an email from the CEO, the management dashboard numbers are wrong, is dashboard broken, please fix, right? So in the past, what this led to is myself, the BI team, the data team starting to scramble, firstly trying to work out, did we change anything in the dashboard yesterday? Are there any upstream data models that we were working on this week? Are there any data sources that might change? What data sources does this dashboard even depend on? And this is where DBT has been a game changer for me, because now I see that the data teams can quickly pull up a view of the lineage all the way from that end user's experience, their end artifact of the dashboard, all the way upstream and all the data models and sources that could influence that dashboard. And on each step of the way now, we have those tests. We are automatically checking if we're passing our data quality tests. And usually, from experience, the culprit is not that someone broke the dashboard or that one of the data models has gone wrong spontaneously. It's almost always that one of the source systems has changed, something like sales CRM, a new field's gone in, some data's been transported, that sort of thing. And what we now are doing every time is adding tests along the way so that more and more, it's not the end user, the CEO, who's noticing the dashboard's got a mistake. It's us catching it automatically with our testing and then getting notified not early in the morning by a scary email. So now I've talked about some of those foundations and enablers. I'd like to touch on a couple of the value creation topics that are really exciting parts for the business and for me. And firstly, I'd like to talk about commercial optimization data projects. So what do I mean by commercial optimization data projects? I think of commercial optimization data projects as ones that go beyond descriptive BI reporting and are more focused on being predictive in their analytics and clearly driving recommendations and decisions. So some common examples where we've done many projects in the HG data team are things like predictive churn intervention. It's things like customer cross-sales modeling, which I'll show an example of. It's things like lead prioritization of net new business. And there are many more in this list that go on and ones that we've worked on. And before I show an example, one thing I would flag is that these projects often sound much harder than descriptive BI reporting, but from a data perspective, they really don't have to be. Once you have those proper foundations in place and the data available, executing on these types of projects can be very high ROI if you can operationalize those insights effectively. And that's a point I'll come back to. So you don't necessarily need to have sophisticated machine learning and analytics to get value from these types of use cases. To bring that to life, I wanted to share with you an example commercial optimization data project from an HG portfolio company where we use data to accelerate cross-sales. We used the data platform, which we helped build, to curate a rich historic data set, 100 plus account managers, 2 years of history, cross-selling to over 80 different products. And we leveraged this data to build a machine learning model that predicted which customers had the highest propensity for cross-sales based on different signals such as their firmographic data, their current product usage and engagement signals. Now this project saw some really great results during the pilot phase. There was a 20% uplift in cross-sales conversion in the test group of sales reps that were using this insights compared to the control. And now, in addition to this great impact, one point I always flag to our data teams is when you start these projects, Make sure you already have a plan for how you are going to measure the insights of your project, ideally test versus control. Don't get caught out with a data project where it's driving impact, but you can't measure it. So what do I think actually drove this success in the top right? Why do I think we had such a high impact here? What are the factors that drove success? Well, firstly, I think we had a great way to surface the insights of the machine learning model to the sales team via an interactive dashboard that we really embedded in their workflow. So we got a lot of feedback from them about how to display the dashboard, how they would use it, and making sure that they could see their accounts rank ordered that they could then make decisions off of. Now, in that iterative process, one really interesting piece of feedback from the sales teams for me was that, honestly, they didn't really mind if the machine learning model was 1% or 2% or 5% better at predicting the cross-sales propensity score. What they wanted to know was why was this model predicting that one of their accounts was a good cross-sales opportunity and the other was not. They wanted to understand the drivers for the machine learning model. They wanted that explainability of the model. And so what we worked on with them is made sure that in that drill down on the dashboard, it was really easy for the sales reps to be able to see the drivers of the model and understand why it was making predictions. And this did two things. One, of course, it then gave them more confidence and trust in the model, got us better engagement, got them using it. And secondly, this really interesting nugget was that they actually used these insights and these drivers to better tailor their conversations with accounts when discussing cross-sales opportunities, helping drive that impact in the top right. So of course, for this project, we had some really great data scientists doing some machine learning models and building great dashboards, and we had that feedback. But what do I think is the real key factor that helped us drive success here? And it was the fact that we were operationalizing these insights with the business, and we had that business sponsor working with the sales team as one team to make sure we operationalize the insights. And honestly, I think that's something as a data field we need to get better at, which is making sure that data insights don't sit on a shelf, but they do get operationalized. And a common problem I've seen in my career, I've sort of characterized in the story on this next slide, which is that the data team is great at identifying a use case. Everyone gets really excited. They go off and build a dashboard. They get some machine learning. There are some great insights there. They then come and tell the business how to use it and operationalize it, and things don't work out as they planned. And this is something we really lean into in the HG data team. So that is by far the most common problem I see with these commercial optimization data projects, is that insights do not get operationalized. And we really lean into that in the team and make sure that we are planning up front with the business. Who is the sponsor here who's going to make sure that this insight gets used, gets adopted, is the right insights that the business needs, and making sure that we are tracking that as well as the impact of the project. One point I would add here that honestly hasn't always made me the most popular with the data teams that I've worked with, is that if your insights are not getting operationalized, it's the data team's responsibility to work on that and make sure that they do. It can't be the fault of the sales team that they're not using the dashboard. It needs to be a challenge for the data team on working out why are their insights not getting operationalized and used. Do they need to do more of this planning up front, working closer with the business? So in the last few minutes, I wanted to talk about the next phase of the journey, which is data products value creation peak. And this is an area I personally am very excited by and I think is going to grow dramatically in the coming years. And so what do I mean by data products? For me, that covers everything from customer-facing BI, unlocking insights from our sort of product data and serving it back to customers as insights. It's leveraging our platform data for benchmarking and market insights that could be relevant for new customers as well, all the way through to using predictive analytics and machine learning directly in product to delight customers. And to bring that to life, I wanted to share an example from an HG portfolio company, Evaluate, that's providing commercial intelligence to global life sciences. So they leveraged their unique and proprietary data of 20 years of transactions, and working with the HG data team, they created a customer-facing BI product that uses machine learning to predict the progression of drugs through different clinical trials. And this has been a huge success. Customers have really got a lot out of this product, and it's also doing considerably better than industry benchmarks in its predictions. Now, again, I ask the question, why do I think this and some of the other data products we've seen in the HG portfolio have been so successful? Well, very similarly to the commercial optimization data projects, it's important to have that data track, that data team, working very closely with the commercial team. So Of course, we need the data team to be understanding the data potential, doing that data science, machine learning, building that customer-facing dashboard, bringing that tech expertise. But very early on, we want to make sure that we have that early commercial involvement, that buy-in. We're creating that launch strategy with marketing and thinking about how it would be positioned. We're refining and iterating the dashboards and product with that commercial involvement, all the way through to how are we actually going to create the sales capability to sell a more machine learning or customer-facing BI-focused product that might be a different position or more sophisticated in that nature. The only other point I would flag here is if your data team also has a history or more of a background in internal projects, so things like that commercial optimization data projects, then do make sure when starting data products that they have the support they need from the R&D organization or the product organization who have that customer-facing experience. For completeness, I also wanted to share what I see as another common problem with data products projects. And this is one I personally think I've been guilty of several times in my career, which is that we all want to use that latest and greatest machine learning and analytics. And don't get me wrong, we've got some HG portfolio companies doing really cutting edge stuff with machine learning, getting great value from it. However, I always encourage data teams to firstly look, when thinking about data products, for the lower hanging fruit of what's the unique data insights that we could serve to our customers with simple customer facing BI. So making sure that we don't rush to that latest and greatest analytics and machine learning until we've already explored the lower hanging fruit of customer facing BI that can often be very easy to get working and drive insights for our customers. So to summarize now, I wanted to flag my key takeaway, so one key message for each of those 4 areas. For the data strategy and vision, assuming that you have one, make sure you don't get caught out making it too long term. Prioritize it not just by impact, but also by time to execute. That rule of thumb, 4 use cases in the first 9 months is what I see as the best sort of balance for a data strategy. When it comes to the data platform, don't try and build it all at once. Think about your core tools and expand. And I'm happy to say we've seen great experience with using DBT at over 10 portfolio companies for that data transformation piece. When it comes to commercial optimization data projects, plan your operationalization up front. Don't get caught out by having data insights that the business don't operationalize. And if I was going to have one key takeaway message from the talk, I think that's the key one for data projects. And finally, on data products, don't rush to overcomplicated analytics or machine learning. Think more about what are my unique data that I have in my business that could delight my customers and that I could serve with simple customer-facing BI. So there are some other areas in the foundations and enablers, as well as in the value creation that we didn't get a chance to talk about that we work on in the HG data team, and some really cool pieces we're doing internally in the HG data team, for example, using machine learning and AI for deal sourcing. We've got some time for questions now, and I'll also be hanging around in the DBT booth a little while. Be very happy to chat with anyone. Really appreciate all your time. Thank you very much.